આવે છે બરાબર?
બરોબર છે.
ઓકે.
હા સર.
પાંચેક મિનિટ 3-4 મિનિટ રાહ જોઈએ.
પુનીત રાજુ,
હમ? Amol, you will be, you are mute, Amol. Okay.
It's 7:30. Shall we start, sir?
Yes, please.
We'll start with the Namaskar mantra first. Jai Jananda, everyone. Welcome to day 5 of our Paryushan lecture series, Jainism Simplified by Dr. Bipin Doshi. To welcome our speaker, Dr. Bipin Doshi, I would invite Mr. Dilip Shah, past president of Jaina and current chairman of Jaina Overseas Relations Committee. Dilip sir, over to you to take this forward.
thank you. Jai Janendra. For the 2023 Paryushan, Jaina is very happy to present first global Paryushan Parva hosted by Dr. Bipin Doshi. The theme for the series of lectures is Jainism Simplified. Dr. Bipin Doshi is a visionary. In 2019, he was appointed as the director of newly created Jaina India Foundation to assist Jaina activities in India. That turned out to be a very wise choice. First, he helped form a team to launch an English language, non-sectarian monthly magazine, Jain Avenue, online, it has been publishing regularly for the past 3 years. He has also launched a monthly discussion forum on applied Jainism that emphasizes environmental issues. And he also coordinated 2009 Jaina online convention activities in India. Dr. Bipin Doshi's subject today is one-sensed organisms and its impact on our lives. Yeah, Dr. Bipin Doshi.
Sadar Jai Jinendra. Today it's Mahavir Jayanti, which we celebrate on the 5th day of Paryushana. Actually, our Mahavir Jayanti falls in the month of Chaitra, so Teras. But because we read Kalpa Sutra traditionally during the Paryushanas, the 5th day of Paryushana is usually celebrated as Mahavir Jayanti. And I hope you must have enjoyed today, or you'll be enjoying today, all that celebration which goes with Mahavir Jayanti during Paryushana. Today, my topic is spiritual practices and our health. On the first day when we started this series, I made it very clear that religion has to be practical, simple, and relevant. There are so many practices which we do in our day-to-day life. Maybe we recite mantras, maybe we do fasting, maybe we do certain other rituals. And many times people feel that, all these rituals, mantras, and various things which people are doing is actually nothing to do with our dharma or nothing to do with our life. But that is actually not so. In those days, probably the science had not advanced, and it was the sixth sense of our Tirthankaras. I wouldn't use the word even sixth sense. It was the Keval Gyan, or the teaching of our Tirthankaras, and many other spiritual leaders of the world who told us or who advised us to do certain spiritual practices. And these practices are not only rituals, but these practices has a vital role to play in our health. Health is wealth. People need mental peace, and people also need good health. So today, I'll be speaking on some of these practices and how science has, looked at these practices in a scientific basis and what we have achieved as on today to prove or disprove the claims made by the claims which are, discussed in our spiritual text. There's a very special science which is coming up, which we call theoneurology, where all our rituals and the various meditative practices are actually studied by various scientific gadgets. It may be MRI, it may be EEG, it may be blood test, or it may be various other investigations which are possible to find out whether really these practices are useful for the betterment of our health or not. The subject is very vast, but I'll try to give you some important points so that it creates an inquiry in your mind to find out whether the practices which we are doing has a scientific foundation or not. Not only that, once you practice it, and when you find that there is an improvement in your health, I'm sure you would like to do it forever in your life. So with this idea, I'm going to make a very small presentation on spirituality and health. I'll just take a minute to share my screen. Do you see the screen? Do you see the screen properly now? Or
Yes,
more?
sir.
Okay, Vishal, thank you. So, as I told you, this topic is the spirituality and health science. I would just like to narrate a small incident in my life. As you all of you know, I am a medical doctor, and there was a woman who entered in my room, and his son wanted to tell me something. She was trying to avoid that. No, you don't tell that. But I still remember what that small child told to me, and I've narrated it over here. पेट को रखो नरम, पाँव को रखो गरम, दिमाग को रखो ठंडा, और डॉक्टर को मारो दंडा. What a beautiful small lines which he gave me. पेट को रखो नरम, take care of your food. पाँव को रखो गरम, do proper exercise. दिमाग को रखो ठंडा, avoid all possible stress. Doctor ko maro danda. That means if you continue to do this, you don't need a doctor. These are very simple way of looking at our betterment of the health. And probably when we look at all our spiritual activities, all these four things are there, all these three things are there in focus. So I'm going to give you some scientific foundation of our spiritual practices today. First of all, many times, we do not realize the importance of all these spiritual practices because we always try to find out we want a experimental, or let's see, we want the evidence-based medicine, as we call it. That there has to be evidences. But I would like to just say that, these are very important things which I have found. That around the circle of experience or around the circle of knowledge, there is a circle of ignorance. As our knowledge grows, there is more inquiry. Then we try to find out, or we find out that, okay, we have now known so much, but there is yet many, many more things to be known. Let me give you a very small example. There was a time when we used to say, water is a molecule. Then came a time, then we started saying that no, water is not a molecule only, but it is H2O. Then we started saying that no, this is particular H and particular O. Then we started saying no, it's not H2O. Ultimately, H and O are nothing but electron, proton, and neutron. Then we said no, that's also not right. Then we went to subatomic particle. So actually, when our knowledge expands, at the same time, we also try to know that, yes, there are many more things yet to be unknown. I remember that when I was a medical student, my book of genetic was hardly 30 pages. When my daughter studied, it was around 300 pages. And when my grandson is going to study genetics, I think it will be a bigger volume than that. So knowledge is always expanding. This is what we have to appreciate. Similarly, knowledge about our spiritual practices, the knowledge about the benefit of our spiritual practice is also ever increasing. Gradually, we have started learning how important these practices are in our life, because that's what I'm going to explore over here. The second very important thing which all of us should realize, and this is not the what the our spiritual masters have said. This is what the scientists have said, that our senses can perceive only 5% of the universe. I'm talking about the universe, which includes billions and billions of galaxies. The science has started believing you right now that the whole universe consists of energy. There is 69% of dark energy. Dark energy doesn't mean it is dark. Dark energy means the energy which we cannot see. They say 26% is dark matter. That is the matter which exists, but we cannot see because we have a limitation of our sensory organs. Only 5% is a normal matter which we can see, and that includes, as I told you, the billions and billions of the galaxies. However, we cannot hardly see few galaxies with our present microscope. And of that few galaxies, there is a Milky Way galaxy, and there are many stars into that. One medium star into that is our sun, and we are part of that star. So, think about it, that what part of the universe we see. Very, very, very small part, probably not even, less than a drop in ocean. So, many times scientists or many people say that, okay, we don't see it, so we don't believe it. But actually, there is a lot that we cannot see in this universe. And there is very, very little that we can see in this universe. This we should realize as a human being, or even when we are putting some argument. The third very important thing is that we always try to ask for the logic. See, everything which we do, we said, what is the logic of this? Yes, it's good. It's good to ask for the logic. I'm not saying that one should not ask for the logic. But friends, remember, when you think about the whole universe, when you think about the whole existence, then probably your question about the logic is absolutely irrelevant. Here I will just put some questions. Simple question. Why does universe exist? How it exists? What happens in the universe? Some of the things we know, but why it exists is a question which we cannot answer. Why am I born? Why do I grow old? Why do I die? The answer would be that it is natural, ultimately. So what is that natural? Does that nature has a logic? Absolutely. So everything to ask in terms of logic is not probably the right thing for us. There are things which are not seen and for which the logic is not possible. The logic cannot answer. Similarly, there are so many spiritual practices which at present logic may not be able to answer. I always tell that there are two kinds of things in world. One which I call experiential science, and the second which I tell experimental science. I'll give you a simple example. That I had a friend of mine who always used to ask me about the eating after the sunset, because a traditional practice in Jains not to eat after sunset, which we call chavyar. We had a lot of arguments. I just told him once day that let's stop this argument. Just do one thing. Observe chavyar or fasting after the sunset for 7 days and see what happens in your body. In fact, I'm very happy to share that after 7 days, he came to me and he told me that he has found himself in a new form, more energetic, more effective. His energy has increased. A lot of his problems of the stomach has gone. His vitality has increased so much just within 7 days. So this I call experiential science. Now, if you ask me that, please, check into the laboratory, what was the energy previously and what was the energy in past and what made differences? Yes, I may not be able to, or we may not be able to, really identify everything. But yes, the experience says that it happens. Obviously, we must also search into the science that why it is happening. I'm not saying, I'm not denying that we should not do the various checkup and various things to really find out how it has happened. But at the same time, the experience says that that's happening. There's so many incidences we hear from the people, and sometimes people think it's a miracle. I think it's not a miracle. It's some science which we have not yet understood, some science about which more information is still required, some science where more in-depth studies are required. So let's keep our mind open. Do not criticize spirituality just like that. And that's why I want to always say that we see part of the universe, a very small part of the universe. We do not recognize yet the things existing in this universe. We have no logic for so many things, and our knowledge is ever expanding. Whatever we know is very little as of today, and more is yet to be known. And that's why, again, as a scientist, as an educated person, as a person whom we call, as a person, as we always claim, we are intellectual people. So let's keep our mind open. And I always study with open mind and try to find out that, yes, there might be something which does not get into my head. That's fine. But there are many things where I must keep my eyes and ears open to understand that. And here we'll try to show you some of the research and some of the study which we have done to tell us about the spiritual practices and what are the scientific basis of that. The purpose of this talk is to redefine what is health. And obviously, as all of you know, well-being is not only of the human. Health is not the well-being of human. That is usually understood. Well-being should include all other living beings, plants, animal, birds, and also the well-being of environment, that is air, water, earth, etc. Because we exist, or our existence is dependent on all these other things. So actually, the health, when we talk the word health, it has to be a holistic health for the whole universe. And because we are all interdependent, the health of living being, at the same time, the environment health are very important. Usually WHO describes health as, physical health, mental health, social health. Obviously, they had spiritual health added, which somebody told me that they have deleted now. Anyhow, that's not the discussion. But we, as a man with wisdom, should understand that health should include the total health of our planet, not only human being. What is the scope of health? As I just now told you, physical health, mental health, social health, environmental health. But these circle or these things would not be complete if we do not add the spiritual health. Spiritual health is equally important, and that's why there are people who usually criticize about the spirituality, but ultimately they are also the people who will definitely practice some spirituality. I'm not using the word here, dharma, because there is some difference between spirituality and dharma. Usually in our language, we said adhyatma and dharma. So I'm not trying to make this only as a Jain presentation, but I would like to make this as a presentation for all other dharma, which are usually there in our Indian tradition. There are common spiritual practices, just to narrate them. It's like, what all of us do, worship, namaz is what Islam would do, the simple prayer that what we usually see in almost all the religion, some practices of yoga, mantra, confession, fasting, etc. These are the common practices which are seen almost in all the religions. Now, when we think about the causes of illness, like as a doctor, I am a doctor, so I usually look at the illness either because of the infection, autoimmune diseases, radiation, toxins, hereditary, idiopathic, etc. The focus in spirituality is mainly the preventive. See, we were given a lot of importance when we were the students on the preventing science. Today also, actually we have missed the train. Our focus on preventive medicine is much less than what it should have been. The spiritual practices actually focuses more on the preventive part of the medicine, where they advise us about the food, they advise us about the lifestyle, they advise us about the mental attitude. A good physician, we are all physicians for our own health, right? We don't have to say the physician means only doctor. A good physician need to look at both the sides. Yes, one side we look at the science, and the other side we should look at the spirituality, because spirituality is one which is important for the prevention of the disease. The modern medicine is something which will help us in case we strike with the disease. Science always looks outward. The spirituality always looks inward. Science is a laboratory evidence. The spirituality is a divine experience. What is the role of spirituality in holistic well-being? The holistic well-being is what? There are four very important components. There are many components. I'm just going to talk about only four components. So I've taken right now four components. What are our diet practices? What do we eat? When do we eat? What are the other rules which should be associated with our diet? I know a few years back, we had nothing like dietitians. But in last 50 years, if we see, the role of dietitian is as important as the role of medical practitioner. Because a simple change in diet can take care of multiple diseases or many diseases. And without diet care, it's impossible to take control of or control various diseases. So what is diet practices? What are the practices that we should do to keep our mind healthy? And obviously, two added things which I have taken over here is it's not only my health which is important. Health of others is important. And my health and others' health is also dependent on the environmental health. We'll start with some of the things about the diet. The first, when as a medical student, I was always told about the diet, where we usually have to have a scientific classification. This is carbohydrate, this is fat, this is protein, and whatnot. These are the minerals which it has. These are the vitamins which it has. So fine, this classification is important for us in certain deficiency. But if you see our learning in either our Agamas, Tripitikas, or Gita, we classify the spiritual classification is a bit different. It talks about sattvic, rajasic, and tamasic. Three kinds of foods, major. What is sattvic food? Is a balanced diet. That means, it's something which keeps you cool. It's something which keeps you healthy. It's something which is very good for your energy. Rajasic is kind of the food which makes you a little lazy, or it's a heavy food, or the food by which your activities or energy goes down. Tamasic is a food which actually makes you aggressive. Your anger increases. You become hyperactive. So this is how the spirituality classifies the food. Sometimes my Jain friends ask me that why we should not eat one particular kind of food. Obviously, there are people who might give the answer in terms of ananta jivas, or because there are infinite jivas. It's very difficult to convince our youth about infinite jivas present in our potatoes or onions or garlic and things like that. It's very simple to tell them that these food are actually, if you make them understand the spiritual part of it, or make them understand that practice this, and you'll find that this kind of food makes you aggressive, this kind of food makes you lazy, then probably they would understand and avoid certain kind of food. Obviously, I don't want to go into the detail of vegetarianism versus non-vegetarianism. Yesterday, I have deliberated very deeply on the use of vegetarianism and vegan food, which is not from the dharmic point of view or spiritual point of view. Very important part of vegetarianism and veganism is the protection of our environment or the climate. Again, yesterday I already discussed this, that how environmental damages occur due to non-vegetarian diet and dairy product. I'll not go into the detail as I've discussed this yesterday in detail. Obviously, I'm not talking about cruelty in pottery farming. I'll come to the very important topic, which is called fasting. There is no religion which does not talk about fasting. You can talk about Christianity, you can talk about Islam, you can talk about Vedic religion, you can talk about Jains, Buddhist, everywhere. The importance of fasting, maybe in different form, right? Like Islam would suggest the fasting at night. And so there are some changes because of the geographical evolution of that particular religion. But actually, when you do fasting, the science has very clearly shown certain things, which I am going to describe over here. The fasting causes metabolic switch. That means our body changing over from glucose as a primary fuel source to using fat for the same. So our fat are mobilized, fat are used. Through this switch over, glucose and insulin are suppressed to a sufficient level and for an adequate length of time to trigger a transition towards fat mobilization and oxidation or ketosis. Prolonged fasting, as practiced especially during festivals, forces the body to exhaust the store of glucose and then fast, simultaneously also breaking down a significant portion of the white blood cells. Fasting flips a regenerative switch, which prompts stem cells to create brand new white blood cells, essentially regenerating the entire immune system. So if you want to strengthen your immune system, fasting at least once in a week is very essential. What does the fasting do in metabolic effect? The sugar goes down, the insulin goes down, non-steroid fatty acid goes up, glucagon goes up. There's an increase of growth hormone, the cortisol goes up, adrenal. See, these are all the things which have been already scientifically proven. It prevents your fatty liver, hypertension, obesity, diabetes, heart disease, and inflammatory processes. And it also helps mood enhancement, longevity, and tissue generation. So again, this intermittent fasting or fasting sometime is not only from the point of view that, okay, I did a fasting and I will be, it's like a spiritual activity. These are the days of Paryushanas, and many of us will be doing fasting. So when you do fasting, yes, one side you may have faith in your tradition and you're doing for that. At the same time, if you do it properly, it will give you a lot of health benefit. Take this very simple incidence. There is a Japanese scientist, biologist, Dr. Yoshinori Oshimi from Tokyo Institute of Technology. He was awarded the Nobel Prize for the discovery of this phenomenon known as autophagy in the year 2016. What is autophagy? Autophagy is a self-digesting mechanism responsible for removal of damaged organelles, malformed proteins during biosynthesis, and non-functional long-lived proteins. These are all, I would say, wastage lying in our body. Autophagy is a natural, orderly, and highly regulated degradation of the cell that removes unnecessary or dysfunctional component from our body. What does it do? When you do practice this, you can avoid or you can get rid of certain diseases, or it can help us into certain diseases like high blood pressure, diabetes, heart disease, kidney disease, and etc. I would like to mention one very important point over here is a story of Buchinger Wilhelmi Clinic of South Germany. This senior doctor Wilhelmi had a severe diseases, And somehow or the other, he learned from the Indian tradition that long fasting can help him to get rid of many diseases. He himself was a medical practitioner, but he practiced long fasting. And that long fasting helped him to get rid of number of diseases. So he founded an institution. And this institution is known as Puchinger William Clinic of South Germany. This is about 100 years old institution. As I told you, his founder, Wilhelmi, cured himself from severe rheumatic fever by long fasting. And he then did multiple research on various kind of fasting. His daughter is rightly managing this 100-bedded hospital. And this hospital provides fasting, treatment by fasting under the medical supervision. There are healthy dietary practices, especially in Indian tradition. Jains do Ayambil, Vedic religion or the Hindus do Shravan Somvar. And basically the focus is to avoid the salt. Obviously, one can do it from 1 to many days. It is rasatyag, means you avoid vigai food, oil, ghee, butter, spices, etc. It controls your obesity. There is a timing of doing this Ayambil in Jain tradition. We do it when there is a change of season, especially in Chaitra and Aso. And it says that when you have this kind of diet, Ayambil diet, for 7 or 10 days, you normalize your metabolism, and the change of the season will not affect you much. It's a process by which one can have a good detoxification. Obviously, you can use rock salt and pepper. It also controls your electrolyte imbalance. And due to all these various diseases, especially the heart disease, blood pressure, etc., can be controlled. Healthy dietary practices also, there is what we call circadian rhythm. This is again scientifically proved, and there are scientists who has given a very, very clear idea about the body clock of diet. The circadian rhythm diet, also known as body clock diet, is basically a form of time-restricted eating plan where you eat in sync with this internal clock. And most of the spiritual practices advises not to eat after the sunset. Obviously, Ayurveda and yoga science has very emphatically discussed these practice in so much detail. And again, those who are with me right now, let me tell you that you need not study so much about it. Just practice it for a few days and find what difference does it make in your life. Obviously, why no food at night? There are so many simple things which are explained to us, because there is a decreased metabolism at night. There is a decreased digestion at night. There is increased conversion of fat at night. There could be a food infection, stomach disturbances. And obviously, there are Mayo Clinic has studied and said that the diet after the sunset or night disturbs your sleep. And as you know, sleep is such a very important part of our health. A good sleep is as essential as our exercises. Again, why to take boiled water? People have a practice of using mineral water and purified water, and we have so many gadgets to purify the water. But there is a standard practice of boiling the water, especially in Jain community. Obviously, the toxins and microbes are destroyed. But what is found right now is that by boiling the water, it's like fermenting your computer. Because science has recently found that water also has a vibrations of pollutants and toxins memorized by it. And this cannot be removed by physical or chemical purification. And to avoid or to destroy these vibratory oscillations, a boiling is required. Obviously, in Ayurveda also, we mentioned about the use of boiled water. I personally always like to use lukewarm water rather than the plain water. And I have found great benefit of this practice in my personal health. As I told you, the preventive and curative intervention of medical disorders by spiritual practices. Now we'll be talking something about how this neuroscience or neurotheology is working. In neurotheology, we usually study about the release of hormones, release of like suppose we are doing a meditation or we are doing a prayer. What happens in the level of our hormones? What happens in our EEG? What happens in our MRI? So these results are very important to understand how these meditative practices are useful. I'm just giving an example. This particular is a recording of EEG. Effect of meditating music, and how it affects beta, alpha, theta, delta waves, and how it helps to cool down the person. In my practice, there are many patients who come with sort of an old age depression, old age tremors, a lack of activities, mental, something like amnesia, or some people who have got early Alzheimer or early Parkinsonism. I very strongly advise them musical therapy. And again, I found a great benefit of musical therapy. Again, what is a musical therapy? It's as simple as that. Just get somebody who sings well in the language which is known by the patient. Let that person be with this patient for some time, either with the instrument or with only vocal, and sync with the patient's desire of music. And it's like many other additional treatment or a complementary treatment. Music is very good. Many of us enjoy Bollywood music before you go to sleep or at certain point of time when you are driving. So what is all this? All this is, how the music is helpful to us in our mental faculties. Yes, obviously, we do study these packed images here. I cannot go into the detail because very much for the doctors. What happens into prefrontal cortex? What is baseline and what is during meditation? Obviously, this is about the SPECT finding. Obviously, there are 4 hormones which are very well described in the spiritual practices and hormones. One is a serotonin. The secretion of the serotonin is for mood elevation, for emotions, appetite, and digestion. Dopamine is for the reward and motivation. Oxytocin is known as love hormones, and corticosteroid or cortisone is known as an hormone which is anti-stress hormones. So this is how we can do various hormonal study. Not only these 4 major hormones, but there are many neurotransmitters which are secreted during our spiritual activities, and study of these hormones will be very important to either prove or disprove the importance of the medical practices. But in majority of the cases, we have found that all these spiritual practices have some benefit in our health through these hormones. Obviously, oxytocin and endocrine hormones are secreted when you have a virtue of friendship. When you appreciate somebody, dopamine hormone is secreted. And when you have a compassion or tolerance, the serotonin hormone is secreted. So how the spiritual attitude can help us to secrete some of these useful hormones in our body. Obviously, as I told you, there is a lot of confusion about the scientific evidences. But now we have started learning about the quantum physics. And in quantum physics, we study law of entanglement. And there's something happening which we have not yet been able to understand because, like, you're sitting with somebody and you find that, okay, he's very nice. You're sitting with somebody and you find that, oh, this man is not right. Now, you're not interacted also. You're just sat beside him. But the aura which is coming from our body and the aura which is coming in from his body is something which is not yet identified well. But obviously, the quantum physics can definitely explain this. Nowadays, we talk about the quantum particles, we talk about the quantum field, talk about the quantum forces. What is described like, aura? The aura is something like where, we can relate the quantum physics with the science of aura and try to understand that how something happens between the two person in a particular situation. When you do certain meditative practices, it protects us from the negative vibrations and it also repulses the negative vibrations. A very standard theory is that anything which is coming from outside, which is a spiritual practice, or when we engage into ourselves into the spiritual practices, the hypothalamus gets stimulated. And in turn, it stimulates pituitary gland, which is considered to be the king of all the endocrines. And ultimately, all endocrine glands are stimulated. And obviously, it also acts on the nervous system. So, again, meditative practices are not to be just looked at, any miracle, but they have a scientific foundation, which I am sure sooner or later science will be able to explain in much detail. Obviously, let's think that all our spiritual practices has to also take care of social health. Two important aspects which have been described again in all the dharmas. One is anekant. Anekant is multifaceted views. This is to avoid the ideological conflicts. See, when we fight with each other, there are three things. Either we fight for the things, or we fight for the person, or we fight for the thought. Sometimes I may not have to, I don't need anything from you, but I fight because I would say I am right, you would say you are right. And here, it's said by our spiritual masters that ultimate truth and reality is complex and has multiple aspects. In short, the truth is multifaceted. My friends, again, try to remember, we are talking about the truth, not the untruth. Untruth cannot be multifaceted. It's the truth which is multifaceted. When you talk about the subject anekantvat, it relates only to truth. Or let me put in a little stronger word or a difficult word, is only talking about samyak. What is samyak? Samyak gyan or samyak darshan. It does not talk about mithya darshan or mithya gyan. So anekant is very useful when we have a communication with each other, because all our judgments are conditional, holding good only for certain conditions, circumstances, and senses. And that's why it's very essential in our life to apply anekantvad, because that create a harmony in our relationship, especially in our family relationship, social relationship, or the relationship between the two nations. So all these spiritual masters have talked about anekant, and it's very essential that for our social health, we practice anekant. Obviously, the another very important part is aparigraha. Aparigraha is minimalism. And minimalism, and it also avoids the materialistic or the material conflicts. I always say that when the GDP increases, yes, we are happy. The finance condition of the country is increasing. There are more jobs. The lifestyle is becoming better. Fine. Nothing bad about it. But remember, whenever the production increases, two things are bound to happen. You are depleting the natural resources, and we are creating a climate crisis. Sooner or later, this is going to be something which is going to affect us. Aparigraha, minimalism, asakta bhav, vitaragata, all these words are used in our Indian traditions. And this is to promote minimalism. Minimalism also helps for us to make the things available for the other. It's an attitude of share and care because it minimizes the selfishness and jealousy. Again, your physical health is important, your mental health is important, our social health is also very important, and all spiritual sciences focuses on the social health. Obviously, environmental health is a big subject, and the way we live today, we are contaminating, we are destroying the good air, water, and earth, or the plants, which are very vital entity. There are 70 goals to transfer our words, which we call sustainable development. This is given by UNO. And if we go through all these goals, we would realize that for each goal, we need a support from our spiritual learning. Unless and until we have no spiritual learning, it will not be possible to implement these 17 goals which are given by UNO. There is one more thing which I would like to mention about it, though I have studied very extensively on this mantra therapy. And people sometimes feel that mantra therapy is also, not scientific. How does it will help you when you are reciting certain mantras? But now there is a science which we call the science of bioresonance. It says that everything in universe is the manifestation of energy, frequency, and vibration. And every vibration produces sound, though we may not hear all those sounds. So everything that exists is a complex consolidation of sound. In 1970, many years back, Dr. Franz Morel, a German medical doctor who used homeopathy in his practice, developed a dedicated therapeutic inventions known as bioresonance therapy. Friends, I don't want to go into so much details of bioresonance, this bioresonance therapy. But let me just tell you that science of bioresonance is also known as science of vibration or waves, cymatics. The phonetic energy, as I explained previously, works through hypothalamus, pituitary, and endocrine axis. The special phonetic energy can affect a target organ. So if certain mantras are recited, it can affect your heart. If certain mantras are recited, it can affect your intestine. If certain mantras are recited, it can affect your eyes. So this phonetic energy which we can create can also act on the target organ. It is also said that when we do recitation of mantras, in a very small amount of nitric acid is produced in our nasal cavity, and which is very helpful to take care of our respiratory tract infections. Obviously, again, I don't want to go. I've written a lot about this meditations. So just there are a few more slides on meditation. Now, see, this is a device. This device can, it can take your waves from your body, and it can separate these waves into harmonious, healthy waves and unhealthy waves, and send the healthy waves back in your body. Though this is under the research at present, but yes, a day would come definitely where the mantra therapy may be very important part of our medical science. Again, this is about the mantra. Okay. Again, this is a very small experiment done by a Japanese scientist, and he found what is the effect of chanting on the crystals of the water when he used the good word on the water, and found the crystals are very, very regular. And when he used the bad words and found the crystals of the water, they look very erratic. And, so this is how one can explain the effect of chanting on our body, because our body consists of 70% of the water. Obviously, the spiritual practices and natural desires, See, we all have four natural desires about the food, about the pleasures, about the attachment, and about the fear. And these are again causes of our disease. And if we control these desires, which is usually part of our spiritual practices, we can definitely control number of diseases. You control your food, you control your sensory pleasures, you learn about the minimalism, how to alleviate your fear. These are some of the things, like suppose somebody asks you how to alleviate your fear. Now, I don't think as a medical practice, I have got a drug to alleviate your fear. But yes, spirituality has a way to alleviate your fear. So again, what I want to tell you is that we have to be little open-minded and try to use, along with our standard medical practices, whether it is Ayurveda, homeopathy, or any other practices, the spiritual practices or the attitude of a person may be very helpful to control his disease. Obviously, one always talks about theory of karma. Each soul is bonded with karma eternally. Karmic bonded leads to transmigration. So this is what we teach as far as the theory of karma is concerned. But this theory of karma is very important for our health. In Jainism, we talk about two types of karmas: Sata Vedaniya karmas and Asata Vedaniya karmas. If you're bonded Asata Vedaniya karmas in past, and on the fruition of that Asata Vedaniya karma, you're bound to get the disease. I'm not saying that malaria is not causing the disease. But suppose, 5 people are infected, 5 people are bitten with the mosquitoes, only 1 develops and 4 doesn't develop, or 2 develops. And then obviously science would try to say in terms of, personal immunity, or maybe in terms of many other scientific reasons. But the spirituality explains this on the basis of theory of karma, that you are affected because that was the fruition of your karma at that particular time. I would like to emphasize one more point, that when there is a disease or asata vedaniya karma, which is related to your health problem, just don't think that it has come only because of karmas. Your efforts to cure is very important, because we know in Jainism, it's not only the purva karmas are important. Purva karma and present efforts both makes the event to happen positive or negative. So let's think that yes, when you have a disease, think of asata vedaniya karma. At the same time, also think that yes, I have to put my efforts like taking proper treatment, efforts like keep yourself cool or equanimity, samtabhav, etc. is very important whenever we are stuck with a disease. Keep your mind open for complementary therapy. Just don't think that complementary therapy has no role to play. A good doctor definitely should treat the patient with his modern medical knowledge. But at the same time, a simple advice on the spiritual practices would definitely go a long way to help your patient to control the disease. Not only doctor, but as I told you, we are the best doctor for own selves. And if we practice spiritual practices, definitely our life would be better. So again, purify body and mind for holistic health. This is Paryushan Mahaparv, a festival of forgiveness. There are a number of papers, especially by Stanford University, where forgiveness has been treated as very important part of our life for the various health problems. Mitti me savva bhuvesu, veram mazam na kenai. And lastly, as Albert Einstein has put, the external mystery of the world is its intangibility. True religion fastens to this element of intangibility and creates a system of thought and action which leads to true harmony and a bliss. Science without religion is lame, and religion without science is blind. Thank you very much for patience hearing. And if you have any question, you can put into the chat box, As I told you, I would like to finish it in the right time. Let me see some of the questions which may have been put into chat box right now. Somebody says that as Ayurveda consultant, I would like to say physical instructions while doing Shamapna, Namonthanu, Chetari Mangalam, Vandana. It's all scientific. Yes, I would always agree that all spiritual practices has a scientific foundation, some of which is known to us, some of which is not known to us. And at the same time, I would always say to all the medical practitioners to keep the mind open, and also to the patients that just don't neglect the spiritual practices. I would be thankful if at the end of the 7 days, the PPT are available to me. I'm sorry, we don't share the PPTs. So if there's anything personally you require, you have to write to me, but we don't publicly give all our PPTs. Do we have to consider the time limit while drinking boiled water? Yes. Anything, whether you are taking a food or boiled water, you have to take it slowly. We have a habit of eating fast or drinking fast, which is obviously scientifically it is not advised. When you eat slowly, the saliva and the lipase mixes well. When you drink slowly, it does not stress on the muscles of your esophagus and the stomach. So yes, it's very essential that eating and drinking both should be reasonably slow, not how long the water should be boiled. See, one can boil the water till it steams out, but I usually advise the lukewarm water in my practice. So, and that is, I told you, the people who come with constipation, people who come with various diseases of the stomach, I found a great benefit of this simple therapy rather than, prescribing them a lot of antibiotics, sort of lot of antacids and other things to cool their digestive system. Two things I have found as a medical practitioner, I have been practicing since last 45 years. A lukewarm water and a light diet are two things which has helped many of my patients. Many of my patients, I don't tell them they do chaviar, but I tell them that please eat as early as possible. Because in Bombay, sometimes it is not possible to tell them something that, okay, eat before the sunset. So I tell them that try to make it as early as possible, one. Second thing which I would like to tell most of the Jain friends, many times my Jain friends have a habit of taking a lunch at about 12 o'clock or 1 o'clock. And then they do chaviar at 5:30, 6 o'clock sometime in the winter season. This is absolutely unhygienic. You have to keep minimum distance of two major meals. Ideally, there should not be two major meals. One should be major, the other one should be minor. It's not, we have been very wrongly taught the requirement of our calories. I would suggest that you take one major meal in the morning, which should be about 10 o'clock or 11 o'clock, and a light meal at 5 o'clock, 6 o'clock. Don't gulp yourself in the evening after taking a meal which you have taken about 12:30. Minimum time period between the two meal should be 6 hours. Minimum I'm talking, ideally 7 hours. So thank you very much. We are just 1 hour and 2 minutes. And again, tomorrow, I'm going to talk about some different subject, and it's going to be a little difficult subject, especially to my friends who may not be Jain, because there is a lot of request on talking something more about Jain philosophy. So tomorrow my topic is Nau Tattva. Maybe those who are not Jain probably may find it difficult, but I'll tell you it's very, very interesting topic. How do I get the eternal bliss? I'm not using the word moksha, but to get the eternal bliss, what is described in Jain philosophy? How does the Jain philosophy describes the relationship of your consciousness with karmic particles? How do you get rid of these karmic particles? How do you get bonded with these karmic particles? So on request of so many of the people, they said, this is Paryushan, and please tell us something more about the Jain philosophy. As you know, I've been teaching Jain philosophy at various places in India and America. So on a special request, my tomorrow topic or our tomorrow topic is going to be Nav Tattva. Nav Tattva is in simple language, essentials to be known for liberation, or the essentials to be known for the bliss. And that would be the topic which I'll be talking tomorrow. Just as I again told you that because of the Paryushanas, number of Jain friends have asked me that in simple words, we want to learn the science of liberation. Over to you, Dilip Bhai.
Thank you. And we will be looking forward to Nav Tattva discussion tomorrow. Good night.
Thank you.